It is a privilege that we can continue our study in the book of Revelation, and we slowly come to the end of this battle between good and evil. We have seen that it's God's desire to have a people that will represent Him to the world, a people that will be in a clear testimony of Jesus Christ. That is, they will live the life of Christ and will show by this the love and righteousness of the Father in human flesh and blood. This is His great desire, and we see that He will fulfill it in these last days. We have seen that Revelation goes through the whole history of humanity, starting from Adam's fall, but even before, we know Lucifer, the dragon that was there, and he brought in all the evil and fought against the children of God. We have seen the scenes that have taken place between Christ's ascension to heaven until He will come again in the clouds of heaven. And we have seen the events that are here very close in our time, the end time, from our time, from today until the coming of Jesus. We have seen last time the 7 plagues, and we have seen how God frees the 144,000 in the 7th plague. He raises the good and evil from the dead, those who have been dead before Jesus came, that is, those who have been led to rest before the start of the 7 plagues, because they were not ready, couldn't go through it, and only the 144,000 go through it. And He will raise those who have not taken the mark of the beast and died under the 3rd angel's message. And He will also raise from the dead those that has crucified Him and has been His worst enemy along the time of this battle. And He will make an eternal covenant with the redeemed ones from heaven. And when He opens that heaven, He frees His children, and then comes the physical judgment of Babylon, and then the physical Armageddon, and the return of Jesus in the clouds of heaven, raising of all the righteousness since Adam, and then the Feast of Tabernacles, that is the journey to heaven. So we saw the 7 last plague, and now we will concentrate especially, because the Bible takes it on Babylon and where it comes from and how it is judged. So Babylon, since when does it exist? And there came one of the 7 angels, I read from chapter 17, verse 1, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So He carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And a woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of the harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And verse 18, And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So Babylon, it says here, every blood that was shed in Babylon. That's why the Babylon is a religious principle. It's that that is the anti-God or the anti-law, and it started with Cain. Cain was the firstborn of Adam and Eve, and he brought in the false religion. He did a sacrifice to give something to the God, to receive something. He was angry that God didn't give him what he merited. He didn't understand or was against the idea that something is wrong in him. He didn't bring a sacrifice so that God could cleanse him. No, he said, I'm okay. I give God something. And he said, others must be right. So he forced his brother and he killed his brother. He was the first one of a Babylonian spirit and who took over that false religion. And he was the first one that never converted. So the false religion starts with Cain, and the good religion starts with Abel, who is the first martyr, who is the first who was slain by his brother. So let us understand that very well. The Babylonian principle, the religious principle, starts from the beginning. Of course, it comes later, but even Jesus says all the blood of the saints were in her killed. Even the crucifixion of Christ happened in that city, where also we saw the two witnesses were burned. Well, it is not a physical city. It is a principle, as we will see that a city is what a principle is. So we have here Babylon, Jerusalem, and we'll find out what is that city and woman principle. And we do it first with that is the child of God. We will see in Ezekiel 16, we have that understanding that a city is a woman, and how God took care of the city and married her. I read from chapter 16 from verse 1. Again the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, cause Jerusalem to know her abominations, and say, Thus says the Lord God unto Jerusalem, Thy birth and thy nativity is of the land of Canaan. Thy father was an Amorite, and thy mother an Hittite. And as for thy nativity, in the day thou wast born, thy navel was not cut, neither wast thou washed in water to supple thee. Thou wast not salted at all, nor swaddled at all. None I pitied thee to do any of these unto thee, to have compassion upon thee, but thou wast cast out in the open field to the loathing of thy person in the day that thou wast born. So it looked like a birth of a child, but not a child, it's a birth of a woman. And when I passed by thee and saw thee polluted in thine own blood, I said unto thee, when thou wast in thy blood, live. Yea, I said unto thee, when thou wast in thy blood, live. I have caused thee to multiply as the bud of the field. So the inhabitants of the city. And thou hast increased and waxen great, and thou art come to excellent ornaments. Thy breasts are fashioned, and thine hair is grown, whereas thou wast naked and bare. Now when I passed by thee and looked upon thee, behold, thy time was the time of love, and I spread my skirt over thee, and covered thy nakedness. Yea, I swear unto thee, and entered into a covenant with thee, says the Lord God, and thou becamest mine. So here is Jerusalem, the city. It's the old Jerusalem, and God is taking that city as his wife. But it is an unfaithful wife, That's why he then has to leave Jerusalem or the city and have the new Jerusalem as that city of him. We will see that next time. So the Babylonian principle is the same. It's a woman that is a harlot, and this is a faithful wife. Already Solomon described the two kinds of principles, the wisdom and the non-wisdom. The wisdom is a faithful wife, and the harlot is the unwisdom, or the stupidity is a harlot, another way of description of a wife. So the city is Babylon. But you see, Jerusalem of old and Babylon of old did not represent just a religious or a state power, but also a religious one. So in those days, religion and cities, or religion and powers, were identical. So when King Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon, he was also the god of Babylon, or the images that he made had to be needed to be worshipped. So when a country went against another one, it was also a fight about the gods of that country, and they took their gods captive. That's why Nebuchadnezzar took out of the temple all those things that they needed for to eat out of them, of the vessels of the temple. And his ancestors, his successors, then used them when then the terrible judgment came over Babylon. So the golden vessels that were used for the serving of the temple, now Nebuchadnezzar took them, and Belshazzar used them in a wrong way, because they conquered the God of Israel. So a city is a capital of a country, and it is also the capital of a king, and a king represents a principle, again, of religion. That's why we find that in the Old Testament, the cities which were capital cities were the mother city, and all the other cities of that country were the daughter city. Jerusalem, having a sister city, which is Samaria, was also a kingly city that had other daughters, because those were the 10 tribes, and here were the 2 tribes of Jacob. That's why they were separated. So we find that the city has many inhabitants, and those other cities are the daughters. So we have a mother, so to say, in the new, today, this world religion, and we have many daughters of the same religion. They come out of the same principle. So let's see that he sees that on that city, or on that woman, is written a mystery. Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. So that's why she's the mother. All bad things and all other cities took over her principle. So what is a mystery? Now, a mystery is something that you cannot explain. Sometimes a mystery can be solved. That is, I don't know it yet, but then I come and I will know it when it comes out. But in this case, it is a lie. It's a mystery how the devil, or Lucifer, wanted from a created being to become a god. It's a mystery how he lied to himself. It's a mystery how Eve took the lie of the devil, that she should become a god herself. How Adam took the lie of his wife. It's a mystery, a secret that we cannot explain. So the mystery that is here is something inexplicable. It's not that you sometimes find it out and now you can explain. Through all eternity, we will not be able to explain the mystery of iniquity because it's not explainable. There was never a reason for sin. There was never a reason that Cain should kill Abel. There was never an explicable cause that the Jewish nation crucified Christ when he came to redeem them. They had the scriptures, they saw him, they had the clear understanding that here was a divine or a human person filled with divine power and love of the Father, and they killed him. It's inexplicable. It's inexplicable. It is irrational. The mystery that is written on her forehead is irrational. All that what makes us sick is an irrational way to think. It's the one to go through the wall. That is nonsense. But we still do it because we are in bondage. So what we do is unreasonable. So it is a mystery or a secret. Not that will be ever explained. It cannot be explained. There is no cause for it. While the truth is no secret or no mystery. Yes, it might take some time to discover the truth, but the truth is when it is discovered, not a secret. I remember when I started to bring the message that God gave me to preach, at the beginning I called it the mystery of life. But then I realized, yes, I want to discover something. I don't want to make something mysterious. Yes, it's unknown. But that's why I do the presentations. That's why I travel and go and speak with my patients, because I want to unveil that secret. But since it's not a secret, I changed it to be the law of life, because that is something that is truth. A truth is something explainable. Truth is not something or that what we will represent to the world. The message that we will give is an explainable thing. We can explain the law, the function of the humanity. We can explain that it works by love and food just sustains. It is rational that we will stop thinking the wrong way. It is rational to go to the cross to get free from the error we are born with. It is reasonable and wise what we will represent. So the two principles have a clear contrast. And I'm so happy that all that what makes us sick is a irrational and unreasonable way of thinking and doing things. And there is never in regeneration or rational thinking the cause of disease. There is no taking in prison of our mind when we reason according to the law and to the truth. So there is a contrast. When we give this message of truth, it will be fantastic because people will see the difference. Because one is inexplicable, irrational, unreasonable, it's a poor lie, and the other is totally reasonable, explainable, and not mystical. You see, today religion and the wrong principle is a mystified religion in which prayer has to work certain things. But here we will have a presentation of a character, of a way to think and live that is according to the law, that says I must take in order to give. And that the other one is the anti-law. It is giving to receive. Those are two different things. They're opposites. They have nothing in common. And I hope we understand that with Babylon. But now we come to see the beast on which the harlot sits. Now in chapter 17, the Bible brings together two beasts and makes them as one. And that is one, the beast that we find in Revelation 12. Revelation 12, we find the dragon. In chapter 12, verse 3, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And then we find, and I stood upon the sand of the sea, chapter 13, and saw a beast rise out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. So you see, I read further, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the tile of a mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Now, we find here these two beasts, chapter 12 and 13, but now in chapter 17, they are brought together. So we see that the woman sitteth on a beast, a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And it was looking like then it is the dragon beast, but it is not the dragon itself, but it is this beast that had upon his heads the name of blasphemy. So it is here described that it is like a bear and so on and so on. And here in chapter 17, it gets just the color of the dragon. And the color here says, and a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, who is the beast? It says here in verse 8, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. So we find us that the beast on which the woman sits is a scarlet beast, which looks like the dragon, but is that beast that has this 7 heads and 10 horns, but it was very identical with the dragon. In the end, it represents the same powers, because the dragon always works with the powers of earth, the humans, that he is just in the back of it. So, and here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. So 7 heads are 7 mountains, means 7 kingdoms. Mountain and kingdom is identical. It's not that the city is put on 7 mountains, like some people think Rome has put on 7 mountains. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come, and whom when he cometh, he must continue a short space. So the beast as total was, is not, and will come out of the bottomless pit and goes into the perdition. The beast itself looks like to be a king. So in chapter 13 we have seen it was wounded. And we know there is one in our history, there's only one beast that was wounded, that was and is not now yet in full power, but will come. So 5 are fallen. So we must go and number the 5 backwards from the situation where the beast was not, but it was before. And we know that this beast that was in Revelation 13 was from 538 till 1798, when through French Revolution the papacy was enthroned and its power was taken away. So that's why we count from them backwards. So Babylon the first, then Medo-Persia, Greece the third, Rome, and papacy, which is the whole beast. These are the 5 that are fallen. 5 are fallen. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. So 1 is now, and we know that every succeeding power kills the other one. So who took the papacy's power away? So it was France. So it can only be the one that exists. And we know that's Europa. Now we will say it as a total. And what is then the future beast that has to come and will just stay a short space, or king or kingdom? And we know the only one that comes into that thing is in prophecy the United States of America. And we find that in chapter 13, that's the beast that comes out of the earth. It takes over and it will rule the world. But, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7 and goes into perdition. So the papacy is the beast as a total, but is also one of the 7. So that's why we find here the whole beast. This is the 8th. When I say this, when the harlot is on it, it's the 8th, but it's one of the 7. It was and was not, and now exists again. And when it comes, of course, when America gives the beast again the power, we also find that there are 10 kings. And these kings have not received yet their kingdom, and they will reign with the beast for 1 hour. So these 10 kings will be somewhere coming up, probably only in the 7th plague, when they fight all against the Lamb of God, which is represented here when we read it. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called, chosen, and faithful. Who are this? Only those who are in this 7 plagues went and are trying to be killed. And they will all unite their forces to kill them, but when they want to kill them, then God appears and he opens up heaven and rescues his 144,000, as we have explained it a little bit before. So this is important that we understand there are 2 separate things that we must understand regarding Babylon. There is one, that Babylon is a spiritual power, but it has to be overcome spiritually and has to be overcome physically. It's the same thing like humanity. Jesus comes first time to overcome the error of the heart with which we are all born. So he says the kingdom of heaven must take place in each one of us. The principles of heaven, the law must be written in our hearts. That is the overcoming of the evil. That's the spiritual battle. And when Jesus will come the second time, he will rescue his servants physically. So when he opens up the heaven, then he rescues them physically. Spiritually, they were already rescued. They were sealed before they entered the 7 last plagues. Now, to understand Revelation, and especially John writes this book not in a successive order, just in a theme order. So he takes one theme and the angel shows him it in one direction, and then he takes the other theme and it goes the other way. So they don't go one another, but he finished one thought and then the other thought and then the other thought. And then now we have to put them in between. So when we start chapter 18, that's not a following of chapter 17, but it brings certain ideas that then we have to put in between them. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every false spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill to her double. So, when does this take place? Well, this doesn't take place in the 7th plague. The earth is not filled with the glory of God through that angel in that time, but before. So, here we find that the 144,000 have a message to bring to the world in the 3 angels' message. And the 2nd angel's message, where he says in chapter 14, verse 8, And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that the great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So here we have the 2 falls of Babylon. First, Babylon must fall by discovering the truth. So when we discover the truth, we see the error. Because we cannot explain the error, but when we see the truth, then we see for sure that the error is wrong. And its inexplicability might be exactly why it's wrong. So the truth can be explained. And so here we have the 2 parts. The falling of the spiritual Babylon takes place before the 7 plagues. And in the 7th plagues, there is a fall of the physical Babylon, where that physical Babylon will be destroyed. And those, of course, who have promoted it, because it's behind every principle, is a human being. But we speak about principles, but we speak about human beings that promote it, that go around and spread it. So here we have the people of God symbolized in this angel that comes from heaven and enlightens the whole earth with his glory. Because this is the message of the 3 angels. It's the message that brings light to the world. And in this light, the error of Babylon, the wine of her fornication, is taken out. It's made visible. When you see the truth, you see, oh, this must be wrong. And now the people that still live in Babylon, but are God's people, they want to know the truth, but because until now no one could show it to them, they could not see it. Like it is our children. They have never seen the love of God. They must see it to take their decision for Christ. They must see the love, not in theory, but lived by people of God. That's why I don't want anything else than to reach the level of loving with God's love completely. Because this will demask the false love, will unmask those wrong things that we call love or right, which are unright. And then the people of God who are sincere in Babylon, when they are called to take the decision between the mark of the beast and not take the mark of the beast, they will see the error and will come out of Babylon. This will be the latter rain. This will be the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, and the whole world will be filled with the glory of God through His chosen, faithful, and called, chosen, and faithful. This will be the spiritual fall of Babylon. That happens before the plagues. That's why I say, come out of her, my people, that you might not receive of her plagues. This is the second angel's message. Because during the plagues, there will be no message anymore. Because the third angel message says, do not take the mark of the beast. And when everyone has taken the mark of the beast and the 144,000 are alone on earth without the mark of the beast, then nothing can be done anymore. There is no need for any gospel. It's over. So here are the two things that we have to separate, the physical and the spiritual. The spiritual is first, and then comes the physical. So we are going first to be clean our hearts, then Jesus will come from heaven and rescue us physically. First, the Babylonian wine must be exposed that the people can choose God, and then those who have withstood will take the physical plagues of Babylon. So, in the end, these two are the decisive things. So, let us see. There's a preparation that is done for the final battle. Lucifer, fallen angel, and human in his service, they create an image for worship. They force all inhabitants of the earth to worship it. Who refuses will be put to death. All must have an outward mark to be able to buy and sell. Jesus and God prepares today His people, and I hope you and I will be there doing this work so that one day we can fully show the love of God in our lives and can warn all people to not take the false worship, to not take the false mark of the beasts. So the spiritual battle must be won first. Before then, the plagues come with the physical results of what has resisted to the spiritual. So may God bless us. Maybe we find in this study clarity what is our purpose and what must be our life and message, that we might be among those called, chosen, and faithful. Amen.